distance that exists between the interests of the politicians and the interests of the families, the interests of the citizens. So this kind of interests, the families and the politician interests, go by two completely different paths. So in other words, the problem is the gap. This enormous gap between the interests of families and the politicians is the expression of the gap between politics and citizenship. The gaps between citizens and politicians, it's exactly the problem we need to address and fix in order to fix politics everywhere. One way to understand and address the problem is to review the very roots of the meaning of both words. For instance, the word politics or politicians and the word citizens or citizenships or citizenry. Where does the word politics come from? We all know the word politics comes from the Greek root polis, which means the city. So politics has to do the affairs that have to do with the city. Where the word citizenship comes from? Of course, the word citizen comes from the Latin word civitas, which also means city. So both polis and civitas, one in Greek, the other in Latin, are synonymous. They mean exactly the same thing. So they mean city or the events or the affairs related with the city. In such a way, citizenship and politics are also synonymous. They mean the same thing. So they mean what has to do with the city, with the community in which all will live. So politicians and citizens should be the same too. They must be the same as well. And that is not happening in most part of the world. My father, who was a utopian, used to say that politics is in such a way important, is so important that we cannot live in the hands of the politicians. So politics is so important, so we cannot just leave them in the politicians. And indeed, it seems that the issues of public life do not belong to citizens, but to the small minority that apparently in all parts of the world has taken over that space for participation. So the key to making government decisions and representation effective, the key to fix politics, in my opinion, or at least one part of that, is that politics and citizenship, politicians and citizens must be also the same in practical life. How can we do that? On the one hand, we need politics to be nurtured by citizens. That politicians come to be citizens with real problems, that they represent the common citizens, and on the other hand, that citizens become politicians. So part of the problem could be solved through the massively break into public life by citizens, that flesh and blood citizens come to be the new politicians of a new era. So this gap that separates citizens from politicians and politics has to be closed, and it has to be closed from both sides of the equations. It is a bridge we need to build, and it has to be built from both banks. And let me start on the citizen side. To fix politics, we as citizens need a new attitude to politics. And here, let me refer to my own experience in Mexico, which is surely different from that observed in Nigeria or somewhere else, but equally important. I don't know what is the reason, but the problem is citizens have a very deep-rooted idea that they should not get involved in politics. I don't know what is the reason, maybe historical, cultural, tradition, or just because of public lies uh, so frequent that people understand that that is the rule to obey, but it's not true. Moreover, which is curious, is even the most honest, the most socially committed citizens reject political participation. And actually, there is a common place to say that politics is not for honest people, that politics is for corruption. Politics is not for honest people. Honest people don't involve themselves in politics. So it is quite the opposite. Politics must be understood not only as a right, but also as a moral duty for every citizen everywhere, especially for the most prepared and the most committed. In this sense, a fundamental premise to change this system is to abandon the idea that politics is only a question of power, devoid of any ethical sense. Actually, the most common definition, unfortunately, of politics is the art of power. And I say unfortunately because it's completely devoid from any ethical sense. So we have to provide political participation with an ethical sense, with ethical parameters. And let's see. Let me say in these words: when my father, as I said, was a utopian, he we will live in the 60s when I was born in Mexico in a quite authoritarian regime. There were no senators from the oppositions. All the governments at local level came from the same political party. The media, all the media were under control of the government. All the unions, or any political power had to see with the government, the one single party regime, which actually stayed in power by 70 years. So, what happened then? The, when the students dare to challenge the government to protest demanding democracy in Mexico in 68, they were massacred by the army, and democracy efforts were brutally canceled. However, there were like small islands of hope and utopia in some parts of the country. One of those islands were inhabited by my father and my family. And actually, I learned to make politics when I was a child, like knocking doors and handing out flyers, because my father always was the opposition candidate. When I was a child, I suppose that the reason was that my father was a great man, but no, the reason was that nobody else wanted to be a candidate of the opposition party of those times. So my father always took by himself the responsibility. When I grew up, was an adolescent, and I realized that there was electoral fraud, and we suffered actually a big electoral fraud at that time. I came to my father and asked him, well, what is the point? People, to be honest, people don't care about what we are proposing. When the people do care, the government steal our votes and our victory. So what is the point? I don't see any sense to continue to do what you are doing all the time. So I quit from politics, say. So my father said, well, I respect your decisions, whatever it could be, and I understand your anger. However, you need to consider my reasons to be in politics. And the reasons is not related with any reasons with power or victories or a capability to manipulate someone else. The reason why we embrace in this family uh, is because we understand the commandment, the mandate in the Bible that love your neighbor. In this house, we understand that as love your neighbor, like make politics with principles. So we have a moral duty with the country. If we don't fulfill that moral duty, no one else is going to do it. Mexico won't change, never. So that's the reason we are doing that, despite the fact, the frauds, despite the fact that we have not victories and so on. So it was quite difficult to me to understand that in particular, but at that time, no one victory was recognized to our party. And actually, my father told me, if you accept to continue understanding your moral duty, you need to understand and accept this. Probably we will never ever see a governor coming from our party in office. Never. Let alone a president. Never, never we would see a president being in office. And several years later on, like 30 years later, I became president of Mexico. But the point I want to make is we need to provide with ethical sense, with ethical parameters, the political participations, and understand political participations like a moral duty, not only a right, but a moral duty. And let's see what does it mean, a moral duty, a moral obligation. When we speak of an ethical sense, when we speak of morality, we speak of a very basic elemental principle that governs ethics in general, regardless of our culture or our religion. And the supreme moral duty to anyone is very basic, and we can phrase it like this: is do good and avoid evil. Do good and avoid evil. When we refer to our neighbor or someone else, of course, we are thinking how we must do good to our neighbor or that person in particular. But what happens when we speak about the whole community in which we live? What happens when we talk about the entire community, the city, the town, or the nations in which we are citizens, the whole society? So it is about doing good to everybody, doing good to everybody. And the only way to do that is to doing the common good, the common good. So politics, understood as a moral duty, is doing good to everybody through the common good. So,
okay, Your Excellency,
that's the way in which we must understand politics. Yeah. Tell me.
Yeah, I was just saying, Your Excellency, we'll have just about a minute so that we could wrap up.
Yeah, no, I don't need to wrap up. I have a message to deliver, and I really appreciate the invitation for your participation. And I really desire good luck to everyone today. And I hope you can fix politics in Nigeria and everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for that speech. I must acknowledge the fact that President Calderon agreed to wake up very early this morning to ensure he's able to join us live all the way from Mexico. They're 6 hours behind. He probably should have been in bed till now, but thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Now, from Latin America back to Africa, our goodwill message is from the first female president of Malawi. She was named most powerful woman in Africa and 40th most powerful woman in the world by Forbes in 2014. Here is a goodwill message from former President of Malawi, Her Excellency Joyce Banda. Okay. Apologies there. We'll bring on instead the next segment because we're having challenges with that. We'll bring you the goodwill message of Her Excellency Joyce Banda. Meanwhile, just before we go on to the next segment, and before we get all the eminent personality that will be speaking to us about it, we have opted to do, please let me introduce to you a writer and public speaker, Dike Chukwumerije. He will share some spoken words with us. Dike, over to you. I believe that Dike Chukwumerije is here.
Congratulate Madam Obi Ezekwesili at the launch of the Fix Politics Foundation. Your commitment to the political, social, and economic development of our African countries is an inspiration to your many fellow African leaders, including myself. I also wish to congratulate all those that have joined you to make this initiative a reality. I also join you today with a great sense of both optimism and humility as I witness the launch of the Fix Politics Foundation with ideals that, if successfully implemented and institutionalized, Africa will see a new dawn in terms of political inclusivity. These politics foundation's tripod pillars have the possibility in them to help Africa achieve developmental goals of complete integration of women and the youth becomes the hallmark of their establishment and implementation. They also have the potential to inspire a whole cadre of servant leaders to rise and to only be fulfilled if people aspiring for leadership believe, as I do, that leadership is a love affair. You must fall in love with the people you serve, and the people must fall in love with you. Having read your concept paper very seriously, and looking at my own past experience as head of state, who believed in putting people first and being inclusive, I believe that the Fix Politics Foundation is looking at steering the emerging of servant leaders. Leaders that are accountable. I stand here with optimism that the foundation will integrate democracy, developmental aspirations of Africa, and the empowerment of women and youth in Africa. all those seeking elected office must realize that power has shifted. It is no longer in state houses.
So we have to say a big thank you to former President of Malawi, Her Excellency Joyce Banda. And I'm told that DK Chukwumerije is online now. I'm hoping we can bring him on. It looks like I might have to move on to the next segment if we're not able to get DK Chukwumerije live right now. Okay, looks like I'll have to introduce the other panelists that we have for this segment. Since we're not able to get DK to come on. Is there an emerging consensus to fix politics is the question. To bring to the table, even if it means tables will be shaken today, so be it, as we welcome the President of Latter Rain Ministries, convener of Save Nigeria Group, and running mate of General Muhammad Buhari in the 2011 presidential election, Pastor Tunde Bakare. On this panel, we also have Professor of Economics and former Governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, Professor Charles Soludo. Joining these two eminent Nigerians, we have two ladies. The first was named one of the most influential people of African descent in 2018. She's also the executive director of Enough is Enough, a non-partisan network of individuals and organizations committed to building a culture of good governance and public accountability in Nigeria through active citizenship. And her name is Yemi Ademalekun. And finally, the second lady is a gender, social, and community development advocate, team lead, young, dynamic, and the pioneer of the exploding conversation on sexual violence in northern Nigeria through Arewa Me Too, fashioned after the global Me Too movement. Her name is Fakria Hashim. And the person that is moderating the session is Aisha Osori. Aisha, over to you.
Thank you, Kayode. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can.
Great. So my name is Aisha Osori, and it's a pleasure to welcome you all today again to Fix Politics Launch and this first panel of the day, where the four panelists that have been introduced by Kayode will speak to that question: if there is an emerging consensus to fix politics. Before I joined, I asked them to share their thoughts briefly on this question. I'd just like to point out, in addition to everything that we've heard this morning or this afternoon already, that politics is the way that people living in groups make decisions. In everyday life, the term politics refers to the way that societies are governed and to the ways that governments make rules and laws. Politics also determines our leadership recruitment, the quality of our collective vision, and the options for achieving a good society where every Nigerian matters. Based on where we are today as a country, a blend of the poor development indices, the insecurity, high poverty and unemployment, weak public goods, and the constant demands for constitutional and electoral reforms. We also have the wonderful talent, creativity, energy, and resilience of Nigerians who thrive and rise to the top of every society across the world where you find us. So it's in this context that we're talking today about why we need to fix politics and if there's an emerging consensus to do so. May I invite, in the order in which they were introduced, Pastor Tunde Bakare, please will you share your thoughts briefly, I would say between 3 to 5 minutes, on this question. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and nice to join everyone, and thank God for this initiative. If the question is there a consensus, my immediate answer will be no. No, because those who are benefiting from the present lopsided arrangement would rather not let there be, would rather not want our politics to be fixed. But to those who might be in minority, who know that things cannot go on like this forever without this nation disintegrating, they will be making efforts for deep to call on to deep and like minds to come together so that in no time, the minority that is right will become the majority and the majority that is wrong will become the minority. There's a lot of work to do to get to the place of consensus. The quest for consensus presupposes the existence of potentially divided opinions, divided camps. And in my opinion, they're based on the following categories: generational, regional, ethnic, partisan, religious, gender, class, power blocks, and foreign interests. If I may look at the generational camps, you have the independence generation, for example. They were born before Nigeria's independence, with some of them having fought for independence. The transitional generation, they correspond to the generation X. They were born between independence and the late 70s. And you have the awakening generation. They correspond to the millennial generation. They were born in the early 80s and the early 2000s. Now, the independence generation, within the time that I have, they are custodians of Nigeria's formative experience from the amalgamation to independence. They construct the Nigerian question all the time from a historical perspective. They believe in the sanctity of the foundational structures of the Nigerian state. They are champions of the restructuring course. They are advocates of regional structures, and they always emphasize true federalism. They define politics from a regional, ethnic, or religious perspective. They are the ones supporting zoning, and many of them are now champions of Odua Republic, Arewa course, Indigo course, etc., etc. The transitional generation are different. They were born into and raised during military dictatorship. They're very confrontational in orientation. They're human rights conscious. They're activists in nature. And they largely engage themselves in politics from a pro-democracy perspective. And then the millennial generation, they're social media empowered, less mindful of national or subnational identities. They're largely interested in politics, but are attracted to bleeds associated with the Obama-Macron phenomenon, less interested in the restructuring debate, simply tired of the frustrations associated with being Nigerian, the frustrations that recently culminated in the NSAS protests, largely unmindful of root causes, foundational issues, and historical realities of the Nigerian situation. They tend to confront real issues such as police brutality, and they believe, unfortunately, that the older generation is responsible for Nigeria's problem. How do you bring all these people with different views and mindset to reach a consensus is what fixed politics is all about. We need to create a platform of intelligent, hardworking, conscientious people who are not only promoting their own interests, will bring all this into a melting pot and be able to forge what will fix our politics, because if we don't fix politics, politics will fix us. And that will be my introductory remark. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pastor Tunde Bakare. That was excellent. You kept it under 5 minutes. May I now invite Professor Charles Soludo to please beat Pastor Tunde Bakare at keeping to between 4 to 5 minutes in his presentation on if there's an emerging consensus to fix politics in Nigeria today. The floor is yours, sir. Do we have Professor Charles Soludo with us?
He's muted.
Are you muted, sir? Could you unmute yourself? Okay, while we give him time to sort out that, Fakria, would you please attempt to answer this question from your own perspective and keep it please to between 4 to 5 minutes. Your time starts now.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure being on a panel with such incredible people that have contributed so much to Nigeria, through their various means of services. Listening to Pastor Tunde Bakare, sort of segment, our generational differences and what we stand for was quite enlightening. But I would like to add that, fixing politics means so many things. It's such an open-ended conversation. And, when I think of my generation and, our demands for example, ending police brutality, going out on the streets, that in itself is one means of trying to fix our own politics, the politics that affects us, and exploring other ways to sort of navigate the safety and the security of our lives. But what we are dealing with is essentially the incompetence and such a deeper degradation of already weak institutions in Nigeria. I mean, we have in the past few weeks witnessed the involvement of critical economic institutions such as the central bank in deep state political conspiracies to flat out obliterate that emergent sense of civic responsibility that young people are trying to uphold. And as younger Nigerians wake up from our extended apathy from political processes, we're seeing how the state's elements are essentially handymen of creating this tired sentiment and resentment of the way things are in this country. But the reality is liberty is which is the foundation of several freedoms that a democracy espouses, has only been achieved through a struggle of balance between our state and society, as we've heard from the Mexican president, former Mexican president. And in Nigeria, the imbalance of government's domineering role and oppressive cultural antiques has left only a path to ruin. So I guess the question remains, how do we strike that balance in a place where education and enlightenment is only a privilege that a majority has been in deprivation of? And I guess that's what we're here to discuss. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Fakria, and thank you for keeping it short. I'd like to invite Professor Charles Soludo. I understand he's back on and can hear us. You have the floor, sir. You're still on mute. We can see you now, but we can't hear you. Not yet. Not yet. We still can't hear you. There's a mute button to your left. It should be to the left of your screen at the bottom. Can you unmute it so that the line, there's usually a red line.
Yes, I think it's unmuted now.
Great. Yes, we can hear you now.
Thank you very much. I want to thank everyone and thank who's made contributions to this very important global conversation. I call it global. It's not just Nigerian or African, because fixing politics is a work in progress everywhere in the world. But let me also thank Obi for this particular initiative. It's quite historic that Obi is taking up this particular initiative. I recall when we were in government, she has come 180 degrees, as it were, from having a total disdain and for politicians and politics, so herself becoming one and now getting quite involved. I think it must be commended, and I commend her and all those in the Fixed Politics team for this conversation. Let me try to answer the question right away. Is there an emerging consensus? I would say that historically, right from some thousands of years, philosophers, the Greek philosophers, Socrates, Aristotle, and all of those have grappled with this question. The question is, there is at least philosophically and most societies that we need a better governance. We need better society because politics is not a destination. It is a process and an ever work in progress. There is that consensus, but the question is how? How do you have productive politics? How do you have politics that incrementally and systematically produces greater good for the greatest number? That's been the issue of how. And for me, I have a thesis that, in fact, that the key to productive politics in terms of how is what I call a conscious, ethical, organized, and vigilant citizenry. That there's 4 key components of the citizens themselves is actually what decides what kind of politics you are going to get and so on. But after all, politics in itself is nothing but it's the arena of conflicting interests, bargaining, and compromise. And outcomes will always reflect these competing, contending interests, including the compromises and bargaining that go with them. You see what is going on in the US today, as it were. Sometimes you have a hung government and so on. It's bargaining. People think it's gone, America is finished, and all of that. The same thing here. As far back as 1929, the About Women riot was about 1929, about women. They organized as citizens to effect a new tax system in that area, as it were. We've had women, Margaret Epo, Fumilayo Kuti, and so on and so forth, who have had to organize, march, and organize to give us some better society. So my first point is that, yes, every society aspires to better politics. But let's make no mistake about it. Because there are always contending, albeit or sometimes also conflicting interests, the bargaining, everybody that is conscious, that has something to offer, needs to be in the arena in that bargaining and contestation process. What you get is what you demand for, or what you organize to demand for. So good politics, productive politics will not fall from the skies, nor given by one benevolent leader as a fluke. Otherwise, it will flicker away. It's sustained struggle, every society has gotten that over centuries of struggles or decades of struggles, organize, struggle, protest, agitate. That is how we move to a better society. There is no optimum best society. And let me also make this point, and I want to put it as a footnote. And I agree with all the elements outlined in this process by the politics agenda. Let me say kudos. I agree to that. I won't comment on them. But there's one point that I want to make, which is the danger of a single story. I think Chimamanda was elucidated this concept of a single story. That when we discuss this politics and the political arena, where we say to the elite, get involved or stop complaining, history matters. There is no single Africa or single Nigeria story. And I must say that we must be able to celebrate the champions. There are people who have had something to offer. And I take Obi as an example. Obi was in politics, but probably not conscious of the fact that she was a politician. I mean, as at that time. Politics is not just about going for election. It's about has 2-3 components. The component of the use of power was where Obi and I were involved as appointees. In the use of power, we were involved in politics. And we must be able to celebrate the champions who have done something, contributed stuff, albeit that if there is no critical mass of the citizens pedaling in the same direction, you're often going to have 5 steps forward and 7 steps backwards, as it were. We must be able to celebrate the champions, distinguish them, because that provides incentives for others to now want to get involved and to be able to do something different, because the society recognizes that they are different. We must celebrate the champions.
Sir, can I ask you to please wrap up? Sorry.
Okay, then the last sentence is to also celebrate the champions, rebuke the derelicts, because if we criminalize everyone, then there is no incentive for people to aspire to have more productive politics, as it were. I think I've got other things, but let's just proceed. And I think maybe question and answer, we can say more.
Hopefully we'll get there. We only have 30 minutes for this panel, but thank you so much for your rich contribution. Yemi Adamelekun, you're next. You have the floor. Please keep it short so that we might be able to take a few questions.
All right, will do. Thank you. And thank you very much to the Fix Politics family for having me on. I'll start with the definition. I think Professor Soludo alluded to it from Plato, that says that one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. And I think that really ultimately for a lot of Nigerians, that's the perspective of how they see politics. Most Nigerians associate politics with partisan politics. And as Professor Soludo said, it's not just if you choose to run for office or are involved in a political party, are you engaged in politics? Also, as Aisha said at the beginning, when she laid the foundation. But ultimately, politics being a tool, the outcome of it that we see as citizens in the country is governance, the governance outcomes of the political pieces of a puzzle is what we see is governance. And what we do complain about repeatedly in Nigeria is maybe not necessarily the politics thereof, but it's the outcome of governance that we see, which then ties us to the fact of those who are in partisan politics. So bad roads, bad schools, bad this, bad that, constant source of conversation. Interestingly enough, the NSAS protest that ended about 2 weeks ago, what it showed very clearly is that organizing and getting things done is really not rocket science. You basically need the right people who have a common vision, working towards an objective, literally on the same side, trying to get things done, which is why you had young people working on a very organic protest that sprung up in different parts of the country, organized legal care, organized emergency services, and there were leaders in certain units, but without one leader in one room orchestrating things somehow, they organized and the outcomes were clear for all to see. So as Pastor Tunde said at the beginning, that is there consensus? And he said no, just because, and his rationale was that a part of the country that's benefiting from the dysfunction that we have would not want it to be fixed. And I say, yeah, maybe for them, but they're a small minority, I dare say. I dare say that a majority of Nigerians actually want better governance outcomes. And because the tool to get those better governance outcomes is to fix politics, I would say there is definitely an emerging consensus that we must fix politics. And from even the NSAS protest and the conversation that came out of that, a lot of young people have started talking about how do we get people into office? How do we get our voters card? INEC has talked about voters registration starting in Q1. People are already looking for that. In Namu or Dofin Festac, citizens are recalling the representative at the state level in Lagos State for what she said on the floor. So it's triggered an interest in, wait a minute, beyond protest, beyond engaging, this partisan politics and engaging in that process is a veritable way of fixing the system that we have. And for the Fix Politics platform, the two sides that they play on very clearly is both the demand and the supply side, which I think is extremely important. I lead a team at Enough is Enough Nigeria that's done a lot of work on the demand side of governance. And that is encouraging citizens to understand their roles and responsibilities and hold elected officials accountable. So not only do you participate by voting on election day, after they are in office, you then hold them accountable by staying on them and ensuring they do their jobs. But Fixed Politics is saying, yes, that is good. The caliber of people that pay attention, understand what it goes into that, but also we need to ensure that we train the right type of people, as President Cadron said, who understand politics or partisan politics with a moral, ethical imperative. So you need people with competence, you need people with character, you need people with capacity, and that must be deliberate. And not only are we training people to have those characteristics, we're then training people on the demand side to pay attention to that. So I think it definitely, there is an emerging consensus and the time is now. And I'll end with another quote that says that eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, and all of us must put our hands on the plow. Thank you.
Thank you, Yemi. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm not sure, Kayode, at this point, I just want to find out how many more minutes we have on this session before we overshoot. Is there time for another round? I'm looking at the Q&A and I don't see anything in particular.
Be a case of wrapping it up, I reckon. It will be a case of wrapping it up now.
Okay. All right. So there's no time for another round with the panelists.
You could actually, Aisha, you could take a final word.
Okay.
And then wrap it up. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'll start again in the order in which we started. Pastor Tunde Bakare, could you just take, based on what you've heard from your fellow panelists, you said a resounding no, and some people say yes, there is a consensus. Do you want to just tell us, give us a pathway to achieving this consensus in a minute, please?
Thank you very much. The reason I said there's no consensus, I didn't say there's no emerging. I said there's no consensus because of those who are benefiting from the lopsided arrangement that we have right now. And I did say those who are awakening to their responsibilities will eventually push those ones out of place because the minority that is right will become the majority. It's only a question of time. But my experience thus far in leading civil protests and in engaging government and holding those in power accountable and speaking truth to power shows to me that a lot need to be done along the citizenry side, what you call the demand side. And in recent times, we have seen majority of people rising to the occasion, making more demands. I recall when we did the Save Nigeria group marches, the Nigerians were lining the streets on one side or the other and just watching and pointing to people. And that brought to my consciousness the quotation credited to Montesquieu, who said, "The tyranny of a prince in an oligarchy, as bad as it is not as dangerous as the apathy of a citizen in a democracy." Nigerian citizens have been they just go along, they move with the wind. And that's why there are, people will come with stomach infrastructure and they jump at it. But what the youth organized recently had showed that a new generation is saying no to the nonsense of the past. And by the grace of God, I pray they'll be in the majority of people not only participating in the process, but ensuring that best of us will lead the rest of us, and not a case of the blind leading the blind and ending in the ditch. The problem of Nigeria is most times the blind lead those who have sight. And that to correct, we must fix politics. And I cannot thank my sister Obieze enough for this initiative, because somebody has to start something that will catch fire. I pray this will catch fire in our nation, and more people will join the group of people saying, we are better than this. Nigeria can be greater than this. We can do better than we are doing right now. And the labor of those, like Professor Soludo mentioned, the heroes that must be celebrated, their labor will not be in vain. And then we'll be able to gradually, as it were, eliminate those villains and perverts who pretend to be patriots, cornering everything for themselves and forgetting the very purpose of government, which is the welfare and the security of the people.
Thank you, sir. That's the perfect place to stop. Thank you so much. Next, Professor Soludo, please try and make it brief. What do you see as a possibility, a pathway to increasing the consensus that we need to fix politics?
Unmute. Yes. Yes, I think, are you hearing me?
Perfectly, yes.
Yes, I want to agree that there is a pathway, but it is not an easy pathway. It is a permanent work in progress, and it will continue to require organization, participation. As I said at the beginning, my thesis is that you must need a conscious, ethical, organized, and vigilant citizenry. And all these elements are quite a handful. And because of that we shouldn't have a single story. If you look at Nigeria, Nigeria is a country, but it goes from Lagos with 5% poverty, largely illiterate population, down to Sokoto, for example, with 80-something% poverty and maybe less than 30% adult literacy. You've got to think of those whole spectrum when you're talking about citizen participation, and given the fault lines that we have, or religion, ethnicity, complicated by the objective conditions of the citizenry themselves. I don't want to underplay, we talk, yes, organize, citizens participate, citizens do this, but I want to point out that it's a huge work in progress. It will require years, but very importantly, a critical mass of people getting involved. My mantra often is, you either participate or stop complaining. And those who have something to offer must get onto the arena. Those who have something to offer must die empty. That is, to give everything they have. Because God, in his infinite wisdom, there must be a purpose for why he made us Nigerians. And the purpose must be for us to live it better than we met it. And I think if we take it this way, and everybody works, as the president of Mexico says, do something today to make a better society and leave it behind better than you met it.
Thank
then we're on to
that's a perfect way to stop. That's perfect. We should die empty and do our bit. Thank you very much. Fakria, it's your turn. Please keep it short.
Yes, thank you. I do believe there is an emerging consensus on fixing our Nigerian politics, especially from the minority middle class, as you know, we have seen exhibited in the NSAS peaceful protests. But you know, what about the majority? Because you know that's where the true power of the citizenry lies, and you know. One of the perfect examples at this, you know, very critical moment of global politics to look at is Stacey Abrams, you know, politics of sort of alleviating voter disenfranchisement. So how do we contextualize that kind of model to penetrate our grassroots politics, because there are power little clusters of power circles in communities across the states. So how do we tap into that? Because this, our presence here is very much, sorry to say, elitist. So thinking beyond, how do we keep talking to people that are already on the same page? How do we reach those at the grassroots level that have the capacity and to make important critical changes to our politics? So I think that's the most important question we should start asking ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for keeping it short and sweet. Next to you, Ms. Ademoleku. And thank you, Ms. Hashim.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to end. I think it's quite poignant that both Pastor Tunde and Dr. Soludo talk to the fact that it's hard work. And I don't think anybody in the Fixed Politics family or anybody in the space is deluded that it's not hard work. And which is why there's constant work. And at least I'll speak for myself and the work that I do. There's constant work to get more people to understand the gravity of the seriousness of the situation at hand. And definitely, as Hashmir said, there needs to be a connection between the elite conversation that we're having and the larger population. But I think it's worth realizing that in the spaces or the spheres of influence that the elite control, i.e. education and the economy to a certain degree, it's what affects those at the lower end of the socioeconomic scale. So the ability to be literate and the ability to have opportunities economically that allow them to make rational decisions in how they choose to use their vote or how they engage are important things. So they're not silos, they're all connected in this conversation. And I dare say that I think we also might assume that the elite, and I will say that quite broadly, that we're talking to that are on this conversation, actually understand. EIE has run radio programs in maybe 25 states across the country over the last 2 or 3 years. And without fail, people don't understand the Constitution, they don't understand and these are people who can read and write. They don't understand the Constitution, they don't understand their rights, they don't understand how they engage government, they don't understand the dynamics of this democracy, that you can hold the people you've elected to power. So I don't think we should assume too much that the elite understand and we know. So therefore, we should quickly just be focusing on those at the lower end of the socioeconomic strata because of the numbers. But if us as the Nigeria's educated elite, who are collectively responsible for this dysfunction, let's not delude ourselves that it's just politicians, those who are in office, we're all collectively responsible for where we found ourselves. If we're not clear enough and don't spend the time to invest in understanding how the Constitution, what our Constitution says our powers are, and engage accordingly, then what are we transferring to those at the lower end of the socioeconomic strata? So I definitely support sort of fixed politics route to impact, if I want to use that word. Start with a group of people who understand and who have decided that they're willing to invest their time and their resources in building this Nigeria. And it's those group of people that then take on the next level of work in expanding it. Because as we say, it is a marathon, not a sprint. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Ms. Ademoleku. Thank you, everyone, again. May I, as I close, I just want to bring the panelists' attention to the chat room and the Q&A. Please, if you're staying on, take some time to respond to some of the questions. For example, Pastor Tunde Bakare, you had a question about the role that you think organized religion can play. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We've heard a really lot of interesting things today that will help to guide the Fixed Politics working groups as they go along to the next phase of this initiative. We've heard one really thoughtful analysis of the divides that impact on consensus and the various stakeholders that need to be brought together. They need to create a platform such as this Fixed Politics that brings all these diverse groups together. 2, we were told that we must appreciate the definitions of politics, that politics is not only about partisanship, which is typically where the mind goes to when we hear the word politics, and to pay attention as we do so to the danger of a single story, to understand that history matters and we must celebrate and acknowledge all our champions as defined collectively by us. 3, that politics is a tool and should be a tool to managing the various interests and the shared vision for better everything better that we want. we still need to know that politics is a tool to getting that, and that there is an emerging consensus, but that we need to increase the demand side. 4, that the apathy of citizens is a huge risk, and we need an organized, vigilant, knowledgeable, and diligent citizenry. And finally, and by no means the least, we heard 5th, that we need to connect the elect consensus to those at the lower scale of the economic scale, aka the grassroots, and to make no assumptions, because as Mr. Demelekun pointed out, even the elite need help appreciating democracy and the powers of citizens within the Nigerian constitution as it is. So we want a country where politics is inclusive, the needs of citizens are prioritized, democratic principles are respected, such that good governance is the norm. And when we do this, when we fix politics, we will be on our way to the society where we continue to aspire. They will never be satisfied. We'll always see that there's room to improve our politics, to better our politics in a way that brings in the contending and conflicting interests that we have. But we must understand that bargain and compromise, as well as steady and sustained demand and struggle, is what we aspire for. Thank you so much for the opportunity to moderate this conversation. Over to you, Kayode. And thank you again, panelists, for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Aisha, for that fantastic summary that you've done, and thanks to the panelists as well. But just before we move on to the next segment, I find it irresistible to bring what we missed earlier back, and that is the writer, author, and accomplished performance poet, incredibly talented public speaker, Dike Chukwumerije. Dike.
Hello, everyone. I apologize for the mix-up at the beginning. I have a very short poem, and I'll go straight to it. A bad road does not understand Igbo. It will not wound the Fulani, as will take all lives. For when a vehicle somersaults, it breaks all bones. So you can speak Nupe till the morning comes. It will not build libraries in our public schools. And when a young woman lies dying in childbirth, your fluency in Ijaw will not save her life. For Christian or Muslim, it makes no difference when you're being driven around in an ambulance from hospital to hospital. You will die suffocating. You will die of causes easily preventable, like no fuel for police to answer your distress call, no light, no water, no nurses, no drugs. Nothing kills as efficiently as bad governance. Cannot pay salaries, whose response to bad roads is bigger SUVs, who set up committees and publish white papers presiding over affairs that never improve. Politicians in jeeps with minds in London. Perpetual anyone with a different opinion who see the people as a throne to sit on. Politicians in power who personalize the state, who criminalize criticism and terrorize dissent. Nothing in society kills as efficiently as politicians in high office with low mentality. For you see, Boko Haram will burn down a classroom, but a politician can swallow the entire school system, can fold our power stations and put in his briefcase, can roll up our railways and keep in the house. Politicians can file our seaports away in a drawer, can cripple all our farms with no fertilizer. No matter the passion you bring to your startup, government can kill it with just one pronouncement. And no degree you hold, no grammar you speak, no decision you've made to just face your work, no protest you stage can save you from those elected to make and enforce our laws. The way they see things is a wall around you. But you cannot drive faster than the person driving you. No matter your wealth, education, education or achievement, you are subject to the mentality of the people in government, politicians in office. Hold the yam and the knife. For to elect is to give the elected power over life. Which child will remain Almajiri or grow to become someone better? These things are in the hands of the people in power, politicians in office. Hold the farm and the seed. For to elect is to give the elected the power to decide whether security operatives can murder citizens and walk away free. These things are in the hands of those who run the country. So if you're tired of it all, then strike at its roots. If you're tired of needing a letter from a senator to get a job, if you're tired of your hustle being frustrated by public policies, if you're tired of the insecurity, then fix the politics. If you're tired of the hunger, the anger in our streets, if you're tired of the number of children who die before age 5, if you're tired of this shame, then fix the politics. For until they are there in public office, men and women with a heart for public service. No tribe, no tongue, just a commitment to build a functional nation that fills us all with pride until they are there in the highest office. Men and women with a heart for selfless service. Until we elect them, we labor in vain. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DK. Thank you very much. Always a joy to open one's ears, eyes, and mind to receive your message, a spoken word, and then chew over it for a while. Always very deep. Thank you very much, DK Chukwumerije. We're now moving into the second segment of this public launch of Fixed Politics. There is a triangle that is used to describe the work that Fixed Politics has to do. At the top of that triangle is the electorate. So let me welcome the co-chair of Empowered and Engaged Electorate Work Study Group, who will be presenting the paper from his team.
The social contract through citizen empowerment, build and engage. The triangle. Enabling the social contract through citizen empowerment to build an engaged electorate. The triangular pillars of democracy, with the regulator at the apex of the triangle, while the political class and the electorate are respectively situated at the left and right hand base, is a simple but powerful visual and conceptual representation of the interplay of forces in a democracy. The regulators make laws and provide independent arbitration of political contests, while the political class, using the instruments of government, provide public goods, ensure the security and well-being of society. The electorate, on the other hand, is the elector and supports government through obedience to lawful orders, payment of taxes, and performance of such other duties as between the political class government. It will ensure peace and security, safety and well-being of society, and promote conditions which aid the enjoyment of life and human progress. The social contract is, however, most workable when there is an awareness of the rights. Fail to make, preserve, or enforce relevant laws, the electorate could become disenfranchised and apathetic to democracy due to illiteracy, ignorance, hunger, and poverty. The political class becomes degenerate and fails to provide public goods without fear of consequences. In extreme cases, a stronger party usurps the rights and roles of other parties in the social contract. leading to abridgment of human, social, and economic freedoms, including the right to life and free speech, the right of citizens to aspire to aptly describe the resulting to enter the political arena. Politics in Nigeria today, like the distorted market system described above, is broken. The failure of political leadership and the acquiescence of thereby creating one of the most unequal societies in the world, with lawlessness, poverty, insecurity. Violent response to peaceful protest, the sight of Nigerians scrambling for food across the country, ongoing efforts to create an alternate reality about the causes of citizen discontent, speak directly to the urgent need to fix or course-correct politics in Nigeria. In the work study group 1, concerned with emerging and empowered and engaged electorate, we recognize the need for all elements of the triangular pillars of democracy to proceed pari passu, but believe strongly that emergence of an empowered electorate is particularly critical. In order to achieve this, our group is currently finalizing the specific programs for intensive education, rights, responsibilities,
We're sorry, we apologize for the challenges with the recorded video. I think we've been trying to make sure that it works, but we'll keep trying from our technical end while we wait for Mr. Kayode Akintemi to come back.
Apologies on that. It's a little glitch with that video. And that was Frank Weke, the co-chair of that team. But we'll go on and unbundle all of what he has said and that which is yet to say. So please join me in welcoming Chioma Agwegbo and the panel. I'll let Chioma go ahead and introduce members of the panel that will be discussing emerging the emerging and empowered and engaged electorate. Chioma.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Mr. Kayode, and good afternoon to everyone joining us everywhere in the world. Welcome to the panel called Emerging and Empowered and Engaged Electorate. Very quickly, I'm just going to welcome my guests to join us. This afternoon, we have Ndi Benedicta Ndikato. She's a social and human rights activist. She founded the Nidari Foundation in 2016, which focuses on human rights, inclusion for women, and youth political processes and development communication. My second panelist is Adewumi Omorua, who's the lead strategist at Gatefield, a public strategy and media group that influences millions of people on the continent. Adewumi assists several global organizations in navigating people, politics, and policy. His expertise includes legislative and issue-based advocacy, strategic communications, crisis and reputation management, political campaigns, and policy analysis and design. My final guest for this afternoon is Dr. Usman Bugaje. He's the convener, Arewa Research and Development Project. He's a former National Secretary, Action Congress of Nigeria. Dr. Bugaje has served as Special Advisor at the Presidency. He has chaired the Foreign Affairs Committee, House of Reps, and was the National Secretary of the Action Congress of Nigeria from 2007 to 2011. Good afternoon again, and a big welcome to my panelists. Very quickly, emerging an enlightened electorate. I'm going to ask my panelists, what is it that you do currently that supports this notion? What are you currently doing in your work? And please give examples using the work that you currently do on how you emerge an enlightened and an empowered electorate. Thank you very much. I'm going to start with Dr. Usman Bugaje. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Chioma. Let me give my regards to all the participants on this platform. For a short of time, I'll go straight to the point. I don't even know how much time we have. I suppose we have up to 5 minutes. Can I confirm that with you, Chioma?
Yes.
Very good. Now, for me, this is a very important and a very serious matter. And I think the supply side has basically shown what it has to offer. It is important that we concentrate on the demand side. But just to be sure, what we have seen in the last 20 years is that basically in the last 20 years, we have more than doubled our poverty. We have, basically increased our insecurity to a level that was inconceivable a few years back. We have destroyed our institutions. The NSAS is one particular evidence, if evidence is needed, that our institutions have basically been run down. And it's not just the police. Basically, anywhere you go, any institution you go in this country is not functioning as it should. And so you can basically say that in the last 20 years, the politics we have played has set us up in a trajectory that is taking us to destruction.
Dr. Usman, I think you just muted yourself in error.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Fantastic.
So sorry about that. I just wanted to say that in the last 20 years, we have actually, our politics have put us on a very dangerous trajectory. We are now moving in a direction that is dangerous and that's not sustainable. Therefore, we necessarily have to pull back and we need to understand why we got there. Clearly, our parties, where we build all the ideas and elect the leaders, at the moment, the political parties, they have no content, they have no conscience, and they have no courage. And our politics has subsequently become completely empty and is driven by a rogue political culture that only knows violence. Today, the issue of competence in our politics is not even a discussion. And even the parties, whatever name you give the party, whether it's APC, PDP, PRP, SDP, what actually is in the people's mind is not it's not what defines the party, it's the people. In other words, you talk about the money bags that fund the party. They become the national leaders of the party, and therefore there is nothing in the party but the people who fund it. In other words, we are stuck with the politics of big men. There is no big idea, and we have failed to transit from big men to big ideas, and precisely because of this, we are stuck with this kind of terrible politics. Now, this is not sustainable, and we just have to pull back and change direction. Now, for me and for quite a number of colleagues that I've been working with, we have done three things. First, we have to produce content for our politics. We have tried at the level of the Arewa Research and Development Project to produce development agenda, because a lot of the people who get elected, whether at the local government, state, or even federal level, have no idea of actually what to do. What they see in politics is just the perks of office. It's just the aggrandizement. There is nothing for them to do. So we at least can produce, we have produced development plans, we have produced ideas, we have held conferences, we are still holding workshops just to at least provide the content, so that at least we can guide those in politics on what to do. That is not enough, but that's a starting point. We think we have got to find a way of engaging the electorate to realize the consequences of ignoring competence, so that we can get the electorate to realize that for somebody to be elected to serve, he must have the competence to be able to deliver, and he must have the character to be able to deliver, and he must have the, if you like, the courage to be able to do the right thing at the right time. Because sometimes people know what to do, they have the competence, but they don't have the courage to actually move further and deliver. So this is one thing that we need to do, and this is what I understand Fix Politics is trying to do. Thirdly, I think we have gotten to a point where young people in this country who form the majority of the population and who are the greatest stakeholders because of their age must come forward. They should, they should stop being somebody's agents. They own this country. The country belongs to them. They have to come forward and immerse themselves in politics, but not the kind of politics that we are. So we have to create a platform. I'm working with a group across the country to create an electronic platform that can bring in together not less than 10 million Nigerians that can actually be present in their different local governments where they can organize, so that we can do three things. First, we have to make sure that we bring out exactly those items that are missing that we must find in a political party. A political party must have content. We have to define it in terms of the ideas it represents, and in terms of the vision it has for the country. We must have leadership with premium, meaning nobody can hold an office in a political party without the relevant qualification to do so, so that we don't continue to have these boys and girls and agents of some of the criminals that are funding the party. We must have competent and responsible people. And third,
Dr. Usman,
yes?
I feel like you're answering my second question, which is what we want participants who are attending this symposium to do. So do you want me to go talk with the others about what they're currently doing, and then we'll come back?
Allow me to finish just this point. We must make sure that our parties are independent financially. We are not going to allow any party to be funded by nobody, no matter how rich he is. We don't want your money. We are going to crowd fund. If we have just 1 million people contributing even 100 naira a month, that gives you 100 million. This is more than enough, to run a political party. So these are the kind of ideas that we are putting on the table, and we are trying to use that to change the way politics is played. Let me stop at this point. Let me hope that there will be an opportunity to say a little more or answer some of the queries or questions or comments, that might be made. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Usman. Two specific things that I took out of what you were saying. One about content and ideas and the work that you're doing, around that, but also engaging, getting citizens to engage and understand the consequences of ignoring competence. Two very powerful points there within what you're doing at the moment. I'm going to go very quickly now to Adewumi. Adewumi, how are you working within Gatefield to emerge an enlightened and empowered electorate? Adewumi, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Nice to have everyone here. I would like to say some of the big things that Gatefield has been doing in terms of making this happen. And I would like to put that within a framework of three ideas. To start with, Gatefield has a journalism fund that has just been frozen by the Central Bank of Nigeria for supporting journalists. We think that's the most important thing that we do in this country, bigger than every kind of work that Gatefield does. We're an impact-focused firm. And what we are trying to do is to define a common challenge. That's the first pillar. What is the common challenge that Nigerians face, from social justice to gender violence? How do we make people see this thing as something that is very unifying and comes together. So for example, I think that the most unifying identity of a Nigerian young person, especially today, is that we are all poor, we are all unemployed, we are both being killed and we are dying. And this reminds me of what a 1993 moment looks like. A lot of conversations have been had about ethnicity by the prior panel, but we should remember that in 1993, a Muslim southerner with a Muslim northerner defeated a Muslim northerner and a Christian southerner in the 1993 elections, including in Kano. Bashir Tofa was from Kano and he was defeated by MKO Abiola. It was because we found a common identity in our economic responsibility. And this is something that we need to bring back. The second way Gatefield has been doing this is defending institutions. We believe in the defense of institutions. Whether it's by our for-profit or our non-profit arm, we do only impact-focused work. And one of the ways we have brought about policy change in Nigeria, one significant one is the creation of the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, which essentially stops the abuse of power by the Magu-run EFCC that weaponized financial intelligence to intimidate political opposition. And for us, we generally think that people think about elections as the major event of a democracy. And I don't think we should treat democracy like that. The idea of our next level for NSAS conversations being 2023 elections, for me, it's fundamentally flawed. We need to stand up against police brutality, against political wastage. We need to test our institutions in court. We need to demand more. Organize protest when the road is bad. In Kenya, there was an innovative campaign around bad roads, around potholes in roads. It was a way that people protested. The idea about the donor ecosystem being responsible for civic action has to change as well. For example, to us, we think that ensuring that transparency in government, supporting journalism, for us, we find out that it's more important than election monitoring. But you guys can see where the money goes. And thirdly, I think that we are trying to dismantle the culture of respect. At Gatefield, we currently do not work with the Nigerian government. It was a position that we took so that we are able to speak out. And I would like to just make that point that it's not the easy thing to do. We are seeing a lot of institutions, including our banks, folding at the instructions of ordinary people who call themselves government officials. They tell them freeze people's accounts, and they do that without questioning, without seeking a court order. And we need to dismantle that culture. For us, it means that we don't want to get fed by the government. And I would like to make this point that the governor of the CBN, who instructed that the Gatefield's account be frozen, has not changed anything. He has made us only determined. I am not afraid of him. He has desecrated the institution. If I meet him anywhere, whether in Nigeria or outside, I'll let him know he's a shameless person. And I encourage Nigerians to extend the same courtesy to him anywhere. I feel like we need to teach the Nigerian public to give no room to oppressive leaders in our public spaces. When you see them in churches, you boo them. When you see them in mosque, you extend that same courtesy to them. And these are the ways we think we're making change happen, and we think that's like the framework for an engaged.
Thank you so much, Adeomi. Powerful points there. The first one was defining a common challenge. The second, defending institutions. And the third, dismantling the culture of respect. I'm going to throw a question to all of our participants before I bring Indy on. What is the common challenge that you think we can all tackle together? Right, so that's going to be my final question to my panelists, but I want to hear from you first. I'll be taking some of the most exciting comments, so please start leaving them in the chat right now. Over to you, Indy. How are you in the work that you do every day, emerging an empowered and engaged electorate?
Hi, Choma. This is to confirm you can hear me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, my dear.
Okay, yes. So the background for my work is very, very clear. I come from a place that is crisis-ridden. Before I was born, people there have been killed and they're still being killed. And I remember trying to find solutions for that. And then trying to find solutions, I thought, wow, why is it that those of us who are providing relief, because of course, Southern Kaduna crisis and other crisis in the Middle Belt gets next to no attention, the international attention, relief materials, all of that hardly come this way. So in providing that solution and trying to see how we can stop the killings in this area and make farming and existing as Nigerians safe for people where I come from, I thought to myself, why is it that those of us who are providing solutions, who are trying to create safety, why are we not the ones in leadership? Why have we not been elected? Why haven't we come forward to get elected? And I found out that people who really cared where I come from didn't want to run for office. There was a kind of disconnect from that. And then the other funny part was that the people who are being governed, who are the victims of this brutality, had separated something. They had kept the people who provide solutions for their problems, people who come to them when they have been attacked, people who speak out loudly. They kept them in one side. These are our solution providers. And then on the other side of things, they kept the politicians. And the conversations around politicians were these useless thieves. They don't do anything. They are not here for us. But none of those conversations united to say, these people are not doing anything, and so we must ease them out. And these groups are doing something. We must ensure they come together. So there's a fundamental problem. The act of leadership has been separated from the political system. The act of actually delivering what it is you were sent there to do has been separated from the electoral, from the political system. And that is a fundamental problem, that if you go to my village, they will tell you, this man is an idiot, he's a thief, but this is his time. And I'm sure this is not limited to Southern Kaduna. It's a problem that, we have found everywhere, literally. So I set out to say, you know what, I'm going to try to run for office. And of course, to cut this story short, the baptism of fire that happened around that time, I saw it in real time. I was told that, look, Indikato, in fact, they would say you are the best candidate, but it's not your time. Number one, you're young, and so you have to wait. The person that is about entering, we don't really like him. We have all of these issues with him, but he has been here for a very long period of time. There was also the advice at the time, I think it was Governor Mimiko, that told me, look for a smaller party. It's going to cut down the issue you're facing with respect to partisan, the two main parties and the difficulty there. Because within that party, I was also told that this person has been in this party since 1999, and therefore we are going to give him the ticket. So we are not going to forget the major issue that would also, of course, keep you out of this, and this is my gender. Of course, in the time of providing all of these solutions, my gender was not brought to the fore. So from this experience, I realized, okay, there are key things. Young people are kept out of politics. People who actually want to get things done cannot play the kind of politics that is contained within the Nigerian system. And then number three is women, which is really the biggest part of it, is being told that, look, you're cute, you've done all of this work, we like you, but you're a woman, you're not going to get this seat. In fact, just come around, perhaps when you're done, you'll get SA. So from this, we decided, look, we're going to take our work seriously and try to break this barrier. So what have we been doing, which brings me to that? It is educating. Number one, we have to let women know. We have to let women know that they belong in this space. Why do you think we have to let women know? It's not that women just wake up and decide they don't want political participation. It is socialization to not want to even belong in this space. Right from childhood, you have been told time and again, look, you have to just be comfortable enough to contribute to your husband's house. You do not belong in these leadership places. But where I come from, literally, women in Southern Kaduna are actually the people who provide for homes. And this is not to say that men are not doing enough. It's just a system. When there's so much violence comes for a certain gender most times. They push men to the war front, people die, and women end up having to leave homes. Because of this, over time, women in Southern Kaduna have actually been on equal ground in terms of providing for the homes, in terms of taking care of the society, but still are not let into these spaces. And so letting women know that they belong in this space has been very important to the work we do at the Nidari Foundation. Now, apart from letting women know, is also to fight, because part of the work we also do is to ensure that, look, these policies and these laws are passed to meet people halfway. So you have to educate them on one way. And this is part of what Adewumi was saying, because when I was looking at the conversation around now, 2023, we must face 2023, this is literally the part where I was after a certain level of activism and advocacy for Southern Kaduna. You know what, the next thing to do is to go into these elections. And when you go into these elections with the way we're rushing, you will meet the biggest heartbreak there. You will meet the biggest heartbreak there, because it's not like you're going to go there with all of our great ideas and you're just meeting a welcome ground. Like, yes, great, we are waiting for you. We have always been waiting, and we're going to get this thing done with you. No, it's not going to be like that. Still going to meet people at the rural area who do not understand, who have divorced leadership from the political process. We're going to meet people who who don't know what is happening yet. And these are people, you would go there with a savior complex, which is what most of us actually have, a savior complex, you know, the elitist conversation. You go there, people are not there yet. I would also borrow from what Yemi Adamulekun said. Most times we think that, oh, the engaged and electorate will also be people on a certain level. No, even amongst us, talk to your friends outside of the civic circle. You will see how bad it is. People do not know and they're not concerned. And so it is for this that we need to keep teaching. It is for this that we need to help create these laws. These laws.
Okay, I think we've just lost Indy there while we try to get her back.
On one hand, meet people halfway.
Okay, Indy, I'm just going to, sorry to cut you short there. I'm going to get, yes, you cut up for a minute. I'm going to use that opportunity to just read out some of the comments that have come in. Ade Dolapo says, the common challenge is greed, no consensus amongst our technocrats. This was evident in the last election when or where they couldn't rally around a single candidate. Uyime Abasi says, the fact remains, we know the problems, they're existent and have been here for a couple of years. What we need now is action, action, action. You didn't tell us what to do. Chisom Asita says, another point we should look into is the problem of lack of orientation of our people, mostly the streets and the low class. Most don't know their rights. People don't even know what to demand from government. The National Orientation Agency has failed totally. That's if they even exist. We need grassroots orientation. And I'll take a final one, which says, from SID Olu, he says, common challenge, every institution should be both accountable and functional, both elected and appointed. I mean, all public and civil servants. Imagine if public works like the private, if public service works like the private institutions, like banks, the oil and gas organizations, etc. Thank you so much for those comments. I'm going to come back to my panel now and ask my final question to all of you, a final question in 30 seconds. What should we do next? And I'm going to start with Adewumi. What should we do next? 30 seconds. You're muted, Adewumi. What should we do next? 30 seconds, please.
I think the path is very clear to us right now. We have shifted the culture. We cannot afford to stop. The government is responding with fear by clamping down. They are trying to create a situation that keeps us at home, and we can't really stop. I mean, that's what I'm thinking about. If you see the actions over the last couple of days, the seizure of passports, the clamp down on accounts of people, the secretive arrest of active participants in the protest, it shows that the government is really afraid. I just feel like we need to take this conversation forward. We cannot find something to protest about, find something to be angry about. We do not have enough jail cells. The government would lose legitimacy before we do, and we just need to keep pushing.
Thank you so much, Adewumi. Find something to be angry about, find something to protest about. I'm going to come to you, Dr. Usman. What should we do in 30 seconds?
I think the
Dr.
greatest
Usman?
challenge,
Yes, sir. Go on, sir.
The greatest challenge is the leadership recruitment mechanism that has become flawed. Until we address it, attack it, and find a better mechanism for a selection of leadership, we are going to be stuck with the problems we are complaining. So I would rather we go straight to changing this mechanism. And the way to do is to get a platform where we can put in a number of us that are worried and concerned about this country. And I know we cannot be less than 5% of the population, which is 10 million. Come together and create our own political party, or take over willing and existing political party, change the political platform, change the political process, and then contest with these people who are killing this country. I think it's doable and it should be done. Simple and straightforward.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That really just hit the nail on the head. My final panelist, Indy, certainly not the least, 30 seconds. Where do we go from here? What do we do?
Recruit and educate. We need more people in this space. We need as many more. And it's a fertile ground right now. There's so many people who want to know more. And I think we should just be on that right now. Recruit as many, educate them, prepare them for that which they want. Many people are asking questions. It is fertile ground. We must educate as many of them, set them on the path of what it is they want to carry on. And basically, that is, again, active political participation. It's not just inside political parties, outside of it, civic engagement, anything. Just keep recruiting, because if we're not recruiting, they are recruiting, and that's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If we're not recruiting, they're recruiting. And I think it's, there's a great point, great place to wrap up this panel. Also to mention that the Fix Politics initiative is one of the excellent ways, actually the visionary of this movement, Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, the drive to recruit and educate, because if we're not doing that, then other people are doing that. Thank you so much, Dr. Usman Bugaje, Ndi Kato, and Adewumi Amora for being such exciting guests on this panel this afternoon. It is now my pleasure and my singular honor to invite to thrill us. I don't know if the word is thrill today, or to inspire us with his brilliance and with his artistic genius, the one, the only Jude Abaga, MI, Mr. Incredible, Chairman. I could go on and on. Everyone, I give you MI.
Hi everyone, Chioma. Wow, what an introduction. I should hire you to follow me around.
You should, man. You should.
It's such an honor to be among such a distinguished, group of people, but also for such an honorable cause. And as we work through all the technical difficulties and trying to figure this out, I want to share some words. I'm a rapper, and so when it boils down to it, without the music, it's the words, and I want to share some words with you guys. It's taken from 2 songs that I have, and I'm merging them together just to share with you guys, so please enjoy. You see, freedom isn't free, it's vision we must stand guard to defend. Its weaknesses amend and apprehend those foes who seek its end. Regurgitate the urge to hate and must not dominate our streets. The right to peace, a light that must not cease, requires we fight this beast. From the dreams of Martin Luther, youth are reaping freedom's glory, and Mandela, Sellers, tell us, compel us to share the story of slaves and graves, of apartheid and those who died disgraced, of nations impatient for independence who freedom embraced. See, what our politics is and was is a product of all that was, from cultures of terror and fear, where freedom was never declared, but better prepared, our future better and clear. We maintain that let forever freedom remain and liberty reign. And that's when I realized we're epic. So go tell the oppressor, tell them MI said it, send them a fax, send an email, send it via FedEx. We are our own tomorrow. We can't be ruled by relics. It's time for our heroes. It's time for us to be movie stars. It's time for MI to return back to his loopy bars. See, this is our dilemma. It's time for success to be ours. The ship is sinking fast, so able bodies to the oars. If we don't bring the change, things will stay the way they is. We say we're scared to die, but we're really scared to live. But this is battle time, so all you have, prepare to give. And we are not alone. Destiny is coming with. Nothing is given freely. But we can live ideally if we can seize the moment and own it, be the proponent. It takes a moment, but then I hope you get it. The world's been waiting on us. We're epic. And we all have to play a great part. See, even Braveheart had a late start. And every great artist will make fake art until that moment they realize just who they are. And we are like movie stars, though we're unaware of the real purpose of the why we're here. We're staring up into the sky, trying to dry our tears, waiting on a hero for a light to appear. But what the message is that it's really you, meant to change the situation that we're living through. You're the change, you're the hope, you're the miracle, and you are all the strength you need in times unbearable. See, nothing is given freely, but we will live ideally because we'll seize the moment and own it and be the proponent. It took a moment, but now I get it. The world's been waiting on us for fixed politics, for every single one of us, for everybody on this call to rise up and demand and protest and scream as loud as you can, to support, to fundraise, to do whatever it takes to be epic. It's time for change. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of the program.
If this was an event where it was physical, I would have said a big, massive round of applause for our very dear own MI, Mr. Incredible Jude Abaga. So we move on from there, and please let me welcome, she is currently co-founder and board member of Teach for Nigeria, co-founder and trustee of the Education Reform and Innovation Team, ERIT, chair of Slum to School Africa, chair and co-founder Imagine Our Education Initiative, and co-chair for the School of Politics, Policy and Governance, Sppg, which is a critical arm of the Fixed Politics Initiative. So let me welcome Alero Aida Otobo.
Thank you very much, Kayode, for that warm introduction. Thank you. I'm just so excited and such a pleasure to be part of this amazing launch of what we've all been waiting for, fixing politics. I am currently the co-chair, one of the co-chairs, and managing segment 3. So it's my pleasure to welcome you to Emerging a New Value-Based Political Class. It is often said that everything rises and falls on leadership. We can lead in black or white, or we can lead in full color. So my question to you, what color is your leadership? What color is our politics? And now, watch and see what color our politics is.
Of servant leaders. The school is built on the premise of the core values of fixed politics. Waiting, and we have been told times without number that Nigeria has potential. When are we going to move from this waiting and hoping and believing to really becoming that which we are meant to be? When will Nigeria come into the fullness of our strength, basking in the full glory of our rich diversity, where everyone, regardless of gender, geography, generation, and ability, has an equal stake in this green land called Nigeria? At the core of that ambition is the quality of leadership, the values of the people who run the affairs of our country at the national and subnational levels matter. We believe now is the time for business unusual, to look at an old problem in a new way, through a solutions lens. The answer is the Unconventional School of Politics, Policy, and Governance, Sppg. The school is built on the premise of the mission of fixed politics. The mission is to elevate the office of the citizen to its rightful place in our nation and develop a political class of servant leaders. The school is built on the premise of the core values of fixed politics: fearlessness, inclusivity, resilience, education, allyship, service, and justice. As we begin to fix our politics, SPPG will attract, develop, and produce a new generation of political leaders who will listen and serve an emerging class of citizens who know their rights. Our mandate is to build a pipeline of a new and disruptive thinking political class. They will be 21st century politicians known for their values-driven character, unquestionable competence, undeniable capacity, and passion for this country, Nigeria. SPPG is open to citizens who aspire to become leaders in society. The program is delivered as a mix of online and in-person courses. Some of the universal modules in the SPPG course curriculum include Governance and Institutions, Ethics and Governance, Public Financial Management 101, Strategic Thinking 101, Political Science 101, Political Governance, Executing Strategy for Results, Leadership 201, Theory and Practice of Disruption. Some of the Nigerian-focused modules include History of Nigeria, State Capture, Corruption and Fragility, Understanding the Nigerian Constitution, Federalism 101, A New Social Contract, The Science of Nigerian Innovation, Conflict Prevention and Resolution, Electoral Processes in Nigeria, Modeling an Economic Development Strategy for Nigeria, Community Renewal and Transformation. There is hope for Nigeria to reach her fullest potential. A Nigeria that works is possible in our lifetime. We can build on what exists to have 24-hour power, pensions paid on time, women, youths, and persons with disabilities having a voice in the political arena, well-functioning hospitals, a rapidly growing industrial sector, a Nigerian flag that we're proud to fly. Someday, we will have that Nigeria where everybody can become somebody without knowing anybody. Join us on this journey towards a new Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Apologies for the poor sound, but I want everyone hearing the sound of my voice to make a promise. When we load this on YouTube, when we upload it, go there and watch it, because it's important for you to understand how unconventional our School of Politics, Policy, and Governance is going to be. And what was highlighted, and I hope you saw the richness of the content of our curriculum. We have curriculum that's going to focus on what we call the universal modules, and the ones focused on Nigeria that will address the problems of Nigeria. Every one of our alumni will know what to do when they graduate from our School of Politics, Policy, and Governance. I would like Kayode just to highlight a few points that I think it's key that we understand before we move to the panel discussions. Kayode, can I please have those few slides? Because I want you to understand the next steps.
Slides. The slide will be coming on in just a minute. So you can go ahead and talk around it while.
I just want you to understand that our faculty, we've got an amazing faculty, national and international. We've got great partnership from a leading school of governance in Germany, the Hertie School of Governance. We have an amazing local partnership with Lagos Business School. And we're going to have practitioners, those who have run for elections, those that failed and the lessons they've learned, and those that have succeeded. So you're going to have a wonderful combination of faculties. And then also what is unique to the unconventional School of Politics, Policy, and Governance is that we have a franchise model. Every one of our graduates, every one of our alumni is going to receive a teaching package, and they're going to be able to do one thing. They're going to teach what they've learned to people in their community. They're going to engage with the electorate. They're going to be able to pass on the knowledge and share what they have learned and activate and empower members of their community. And that is so important. You've got to be able to set up your own mini Sppg in your local level, in your local community, in your local government area. And then finally, what are the next steps? You can go online, www.fixpolitics.org. And what you can do is request for a prospectus. Complete the form that you're going to see there. Ask for the prospectus, and we'll engage with you immediately. You'll get a prospectus, and then we have a process where we can apply by application or by invitation. There are people that want to see at the local level, grassroots, that will invite to be part of it. And 70% of the school is online, and 30% is going to be localized in various centers nationwide. This was the presentation, renowned international franchise model. And I'd just like to focus on the last slide, the very last one. Go to our website. Yeah, this is it. Step 1, apply and be chosen to change the political and economic landscape. Complete a simple form, request for prospectus. And then the third step is we'll engage with you, and by invitation application, you can join us for 6 months, 500 wonderful dynamic people, 250 dynamic young people, nation builders, and 250 women. We are going to be focusing on those that are the next generation below 37 and those that are women. And then we'll have a small group for those over 37. And on that note, Amina, over to you. You're going to have an amazing time with our panel. Thank you, Amina.
Many thanks indeed, my sister girl.
Thank you.
And thank you so very much, dear colleagues, for the excellent comments and the energy and excitement around the school. The glitch with the video was not enough to stop you. You know, it's like we say in Nigeria, when you're handed pepper, you make pepper soup. It doesn't stop you. And we know this is a marathon and not a sprint, as it were. Welcome from whatever part of the world you are in to this very important moment of power, purpose, and politics. We have a very strong panel for the next 15 minutes because time is far spent. So we're just going to be having a conversation for the next 15 minutes. We've got a 3+1 panel, and you're going to be meeting the +1 after you have met the 3 on the panel. We have today my sister and my colleague in the women's movement, Cynthia Mbamalu, program team lead with Yaga Africa. Also on the panel this afternoon is a brother and a friend, Ini Aboyeji, who is actually a World Economic Forum Young Global Leader. A third colleague was meant to join us, and we're hoping he still can, but he did send in word to say that he might be on his way to Kaduna now. As you might have heard the sad news of the passing away of the former governor of Kaduna and a very, very strong pillar of democracy in Nigeria. He's had to go to Kaduna for the burial of our big brother, Comrade Balarabe, like we call him. And we pray that Allah rest his soul in Jannah. If he's able to join us, we will still accommodate him as much as possible. But at the age of 84, our big brother, Balarabe Musa, is no longer with us. So, distinguished colleagues, let me begin with Ini Aboyeji. This panel is actually around looking at a new value-based leadership. And Ini, as the co-founder of Future Africa, has been very concerned about curating a critical successor generation that is strong, that actually has access to capital, that is innovative, and is able to build and raise a strong community. Here we are trying to start what we call an unconventional school of politics, policy, and governance. My brother Ini We have been told that in this country, we have youth 1 and we have youth 2. But as far as we are concerned, they're all both victims of a system that is excluding their voice. As we start this journey of the Sppg as an unconventional beginning, how should we begin to think about building that critical community? Practical ideas, Ian. You have 3 minutes.
Sure, thank you very much for having me on here today and for this amazing conversation. I believe that there are many layers to building a community that can push for the right kind of political change in our society. And most importantly, allows us to build a society that works for everybody. Because at the end of the day, if your society is sick, it doesn't matter how rich or privileged you are at risk, as we saw during the aftermath of the protests. You know, the government could send instigators into the crowd. Politicians could send instigators into the crowd and create trouble because we hadn't closed ranks on the extreme wealth inequality that exists in our society today. And my belief is that it actually still behoves on business leaders like myself, young business leaders and perhaps older business leaders, to move away from a system that has, prior to now, predicated itself on this idea that we exist in business to just make money, but now start to move towards a more socially responsible model of doing business that enables us to be able to close our social and economic gaps. Now, the truth of the matter is the business that I do provides jobs for people. It doesn't just make me money. But more importantly, I think there has to be a recognition from the business community that beyond the investments that we're making into the country and the jobs that we're creating in the country, there is a need for us to become more vocal about policies that would enable us to be able to do even more. So business leaders have been missing in the conversation for too long. And I think there is a need for us to bring them back into the conversation so that they can be, as responsible guardians of the economy, encourage the right kind of policies that would enable us to create a more prosperous society for all of us.
Thank you very much. 3 minutes on the dot. Thank you. And I'm going to be returning to you later to follow up on the dimension of business that you raised. Because one of the things that was said in the last panel was about how we raise our resources. And the School of Politics and Policy and Governance is also trying to think about how we can create honest sources of resources for people who will be running for office. There are new ways now of raising resources, crowdfunding, for example, and you are part of the team around Andela and Flutterwave. And I'm going to be coming back to ask you exactly what is the shape of money looking like as far as politics is concerned, and what should we be looking out for in our school, Sppg. Let me come to my sister, Cynthia, who has been in the forefront of organizing, of ensuring that young people have a voice in terms of the not too young to run, but also ready to run campaign. And the color of that campaign right now is looking like it is very male-centric. So every time we talk about youth, we seem to have the assumption that youth does not consist of two categories, women and men, young women and men. The assumption is that, oh, maybe it is all men, young men. But we know that women are also young. If we're thinking about a critical successor generation, and one of the comments earlier in the box talked about creating a coalition for change. The color of that coalition has to be one that looks at geography, that looks at generation, that looks at disability, as well as class. Where are young women in the movement towards 2023? And what should we be mindful of in Sppg? You have the floor, Cynthia.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be part of this great conversation at this very important time. And I think I will start with first stating that values are deep-rooted, that it informs our emotions, it informs our actions, and in fixing politics, we must ensure that at the very core is what values we want to promote. And that for me would lead to the conversation around what is the generational pipeline. And the first point for me is the need to intentionally invest in building decentralized leadership that promotes gender equality and diversity, because it must begin at that point of leadership. And I would just draw examples from movements, like you mentioned, the Not Too Young to Run. And then also I would look at even the NSAS movement, because within this movement, we actually saw women playing an important role, mobilizing young people to the streets and providing support to the movement. So what are we learning from that? What are we learning from, be it the NSAS, be it the Not? So I think the challenge with Not Too Young to Run was the fact that it had to do with the political system. And it was one thing to have women at the leadership team for the movement. It was another thing to have the political system favor young women who were candidates in the election. So it was then beyond the movement at that point, but the question of the political system that did not favor inclusion. And that connects with the conversation around ensuring a diverse and gender inclusive leadership. We can no longer operate with the obsolete structures that political parties are currently operating, because what we have is a system that is male dominated and excludes diverse voices, and we expect this system to produce automatically responses or outcome that would inform participation. And for me, the next part around this is beyond just having a decentralized system that the individuals who lead within the movement, be it women, young men, that we are intentional in promoting the agenda of this diverse group. Because if we cannot promote this agenda, if we cannot promote the faces of the leaders of the movement that shows diversity and reflects the society, it would be a major challenge for us in building that difference in generation. So that for me is very key. So if you take, for instance, within the NSAS movement, we saw young women who provided legal services, who were leading voices in their community, but we also saw diversity in the sense that, be it at the rural or urban area, every young person felt they were part of the movement, that they were leaders, and they were accountable for the success of the movement. So that is the first point, decentralized for me. The second point for me is mobilizing around shared purpose. And because in talking around fixing politics, we must ensure that every one of us connects with the purpose, not just the purpose, but that the movement itself is targeted towards a purpose. And that is an inclusive society that truly meets the needs of its people. And that for me is a point of commencement, that we have a shared purpose. And why is this important? Because one, our shared purpose, directs us to our goal, and it must intersect with common good. Because if it doesn't intersect with common good, the generality of the population wouldn't connect with the essence of that. And I'll move straightly to beyond mobilizing around shared purpose and what that big picture is for us, which is a Nigeria that is truly inclusive, is around building an identity that truly reflects our core values, one, and that truly communicates our message. Now, why is this important? Because like I said, we cannot have a political system that is value neutral. That cannot work. It seems to have been existing, but obviously it is failing us. So we need to change the discourse. We need to change the conversation. And the importance of that value and building a system that is not value neutral is because when you're driven by values, whoever meets you would understand what you're dealing with. And that is because politics is about a game of number. And my last point is the fact that in fixing politics, while we cannot longer be value neutral, is because our values define our politics, and our politics inform the kind of leaders who emerge. And gender inclusivity and equality must be at the core. Thank you.
Very well, points well made, my sister Cynthia. Before I return to E, because I'm not sure if Dr. Hakim Baba Ahmed has been able to join us. But before I return to E, I would like to pose a question to the distinguished colleagues who have joined us today from all parts of the world. A lot of the time we look at values as if they're normatively good, but we know that some values can be very poor, very bad. Can you share with us some values that resonate with you, that you think the unconventional school of politics, policy, and governance should prioritize? Just mention the value that you think really matters to you, so that we're already working with you at the design stage and we're collecting your thoughts. My brother Inyi, let me return to you. Timi said in the chat that actually the older generation of captains of industry are kind of like complacent, but the younger generation are not even looking in the direction of politics at all. I want you to tie that to what you had said earlier about the fact that we need to look at that triple helix of government, civil society, and private sector in terms of the work that we're trying to do, but also look at the way in which we're raising resources. How do we incentivize the private sector, and how do we raise the resources for the work we need to do? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that great question. I think, first of all, I want to challenge the impression that the younger generation isn't looking in the direction of politics at all. I think it's a mistaken conception. I tell you, in the last election, many of us backed third-party candidates, and so many of us are politically active. We might not necessarily be out there in front of the protest because we have a lot of work to do. But the reality of the matter is that we're all politically active in our own ways, and we do donate generously into politics. I do, as a matter of fact, and I know many of my colleagues who do. But that said, I think that it's very important to understand that there's certainly now settled arguments about the way the world works. One of those arguments is that government control of the economy is always going to be disastrous. And I think we've watched that play out in our country over the last 4 or 5 years, over the last couple of years, really, since the current administration, which is extremely statist, took over government, right? Companies set up here and there, but no growth, no employment, no innovation, heavy-handed regulation, a lot of politically motivated appointments, and as a result, our economy is suffering for it. And so, from the business community, what we require from politicians in this new dispensation is an acknowledgement of the fact that statist control of the economy has failed, and a commitment to deregulating the economy so that we private sector people are able to come in, invest resources, create jobs, and have an economy. If there is a solid mandate in that direction, I believe that most of us in the private sector will be compelled to support that consensus. And then we would look at it the way we look at investments, right? Can we invest in a change of perspective in the Nigerian government such that we're no longer focused on statist approaches that have failed since the Soviet Union, and we're now focused on a free market, or at least a regulated market, to the extent that that is possible, that ensures everybody has social equality, but at the same time gives people agency within the economy.
Many thanks indeed, E. My sister Cynthia, let me come to you, and this is going to be my final question to you, because you did very well. You took all the questions together in one go. What do you think we need to pay attention to at Sppg if we're thinking about creating a critical successor generation that we take the next milestone of 2023 and beyond seriously? Practical ideas.
And practical ideas, I think in the recruitment process, we need to ensure that whoever we're identifying, as we are building capacities to deploy them to the political space, that these individuals must have the 3 C's, like we've been emphasizing: capacity, competence, and character. Character is key to me. And then looking at key values. What values are we looking at? People who understand the importance of responsible leadership, who understand that leadership is service, people who understand integrity as a core that defines us in whatever we do. People who are ready to ensure that equality and inclusion is what they are driven by across board. So I believe that for every programming on leadership recruitment, we must define what our values are. Like you said, it could be bad or good values. We want values that truly would promote a system that reflects who we are as a people, and that can take Nigeria to where it ought to be. And like Mahatma Gandhi would say, you cannot have politics without principles. That is one of the 7 sins. So we cannot have politics without principles, and political action must result in good and action for all.
Absolutely. And thank you so very much for your powerful participation, dear participants. Someone actually said clean drinking water was the value that mattered to them. Well, all answers are correct, but there have been so many powerful ideas that you have thrown up. And as I move to introduce our +1 panelists, I'm going to set the colleagues who have joined the call another important question, because we're taking note of what you said in the chat. And that question is to ask you, if there's any key resource that you think the unconventional SPPG should have on its curriculum, what would it be? It could be a book, it could be a film, it could be poetry, it could be some quotation somewhere. For example, right now, I'm loving Aisha Usori's Love Does Not Win Elections. So please also drop those kind of ideas of the kind of resources that you think we should be looking out for if our school is going to be unconventional. And to say, in summary, that our panelists today, and even the colleagues that have come before this panel, have made it clear that the question is not whether or not we should engage politics. The question is, how should we engage politics? How do we engage the state? How do we engage society? And we have to invest. Every one of us has to invest, and it is actually about the eye of responsibility. We can no longer pass the buck. If you think you're too small to do anything, try sleeping with a mosquito in your mosquito net. You're not going to have a good night's sleep. As tiny as a mosquito, Tajuddin Abdurrahim said, we need to stop agonizing. We need to start organizing. And as someone said in the chat earlier, leadership is a love affair. We need to love ourselves and love other colleagues and love our country and love our fellow citizens. And as we're naming and shaming the bad people, we also should be naming and hailing the good people, because we need to also celebrate those who are doing good. You watched the documentary this morning and you saw Dr. Ebi Ezekwesili center stage. It's because she has earned that space. Thank you very much for all the excellent ideas of thoughts that are coming into the chat, excellent resources that you're throwing up. Let me thank my sister Cynthia and my brother Ian for a very powerful and engaging panel. And now to our 3+1. We're already walking the talk. If we want to build a critical successor generation of leaders through our unconventional SPPG, then we have to give space and hand over the baton to new voices. Our 3+1 is a sensational, strong voice, a wise, old, young soul. She already epitomizes the fires of justice, which is actually the values of the Fix Politics movement. Please welcome, as we segue off this panel, my darling baby sister, as wonder sensation teenager, Chioma Ezugu, to take the Chisom Ezugu. Darling Chisom, you have the floor now for your powerful words to us. We're all ears and we're listening. Welcome, Chisom Ezugu.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everyone. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for this platform. Okay, I'll just go straight ahead and give my presentation titled, Who Are You? We Are the Change We Need, and I Am New Politics. Thank you. Who are you? Sounds familiar? This question is inevitable in the system and circumference that we are in. One time or the other, everybody has been asked. They want to know who you are, where you're from, what's your pedigree. You can't sit there. Those seats are reserved for the elite, the cream de la cream of the society. You want to do one thing or the other, you have to know a person that knows a person that is somehow related to the pioneer. Do you frequently frequent the corridors of power? And who can you call right now so we can do our jobs? I need you to see me, for what I can do, for what I can bring to the table. My potentials, my values should grant me access without political supplements. Hear me when I talk, read what I write, give me your attention with no strings attached. That's not too much to ask, because tea and pap, not the same hot water, of the same origin, because water boils at 100 degrees Celsius at the presence of heat. It doesn't matter the color, tribe, race, gender, ethnicity, or academic status of that heat. As long as it is fire, it will boil. Don't get too comfortable. Even sherbet is not a sherbet. Let the judge and the jury pass their sentence with justice, without bias. Let the policeman stick to his oath of maintaining law and order without bias. Let the TV presenter speak facts unreservedly. Let that award be given on merit without asking the question, who are you? I am me. Happy? I am me, and yes, I am Africa, the new frontier. Count the votes as it was cast, and let the vote count. We put you in that chair. You are for the people, of the people, and by the people. You are democracy. Let us see your dividends. I am Nigeria. I am the Prince of the Vatican. I am sub-Saharan Africa, and I am rising very fast out of the dust and ashes of the past. I am Africa, a risen giant, cleaned of every filthy debris of injustice, hate, killings, nepotism, bad governance, unemployment, poverty, violence. I am the new frontier. Yes, the sleeping giant has been nudged from her long overdue slumber. I am greatness. I am justice. We are the change we need. I am transparency. I am fairness. I am wisdom for good governance. I am a land overflowing with milk and honey, rich in all resources. I am a blessed nation. I am the present future. I am an overflowing river that cannot be stopped. I am a ticking time bomb. I am me. That's who I am. You are you. We are the change we need, because at the end of the day, if you need external factors and parameters to give credence to your life and personality, you are not being true to yourself, because the best definition of you is found within you. And that is how we fix it. That is how we fix politics. When we look within, when we look inwards, because we are our best shot. We are all we've got, and we are our only chance. So when next they ask you, who are you? Sarcastically, tell them, I am the me you are not, and you can never be. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've got to hear you applause. You've got a button at the bottom of your screen. You can give her a high five. You're allowed to unmute and just rain. Thank you, Dr. Abdul. I can see your community of watchers doing an excellent job. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Just present and emerging. It's not future leadership, it's emerging leadership. I have the honor, distinguished colleagues, to introduce the moderator of the next panel. This sister is a consummate professional. Every time she shares her thoughts, you listen. Passionate about education, financial inclusion, and eradicating poverty. She's got over 3 decades experience in finance and insurance, marketing, auditing, and banking. Most importantly, she's a proud Nigerian. To moderate the next segment, please welcome my sister, Ms. Bumi Lawson. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And good evening, everyone. It is indeed an honor to be here. Thank you very much. This session that we are going to discuss is about the institutions and the laws that monitor and provide oversight over the demand and supply side of the democratic system. That is the politicians and the citizens. So how do we provide oversight? Where there are no rules or governance, an unfair system that does not deliver the desires and needs of the citizens would ensue, as we have seen today. We all agree that we need reform, and this reform should be driven by the voice of the citizens. What do the citizens want? What rules and values should we live by? To discuss these issues, we have a panel of experts in all these 3 areas. We are going to discuss the constitutional reform, political reform, and electoral reform. So let me quickly introduce our panel. Samson Itodo is the executive director of IAGA Africa and the Not Too Young to Run campaign. Samson is a lawyer by profession and is very enthusiastic about election reform. Ayo Shogunro is also a lawyer and a public intellectual. He has done extensive work on constitutional reform. Ayo is currently a PhD student in Pretoria, South Africa. And last but definitely not the least, probably needs no introduction, is Professor Atahiru Jega. He is one of Nigeria's foremost comrade and former ASU chairman. Professor Jega is the former chairman of INEC and received commendation both from Nigerians locally and globally for conducting improved elections in Nigeria twice consecutively. So to start off this discussion, I would call on Professor Jega to give us some insights about how we can actually go about electoral reform. What areas need reform and how can the citizens participate? Professor Jega.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. First and foremost, let me express my appreciation for being invited to participate in this very important event of Fixed Politics launching. I commend Dr. Obi Ezekwesili for the initiative and the leadership and all of those associated with it. And first of all, let me say that fixing politics is a complex, multidimensional undertaking. It's very important, therefore, that we also have complex, multiple strategies of addressing all those things that need to be fixed. Secondly, I think it's important to realize that it is not the kind of fix that drug addicts have that we need in order to fix our politics, because that kind of fix is temporary. It gives temporary relief, and after a while, it's replaced by distress and unhappiness and so on until they get another fix. What we need is an enduring fix that can reposition our politics, that can reinvigorate our politics, and that can ensure that the end result of politics is good democratic governance. So I think it's very important to have these issues very clear. Also, it's important to recognize that generally the struggle to bring about good politics is really a struggle between good and bad or good and evil, you know, because it's not just a simple struggle of fixing, but fixing for good against the prevailing dominance of bad or evil in the ways in which our politics are conducted. So having said that, I think that since we operate an electoral democracy, or we are striving to operate an electoral democracy, it is very, very important and is of primacy that we get our elections right. And unfortunately, throughout our striving to have a transition to democracy, we seem to have only paid lip service to the need to ensure that our elections have integrity. And it is very, very important, therefore, we focus attention on reform efforts that can ensure that our elections continue to upscale and have greater integrity, because that is the only way that we can deepen our democracy, and that is also the best way that we can have good democratic governance. You know, democracy or democratic governance is primarily about the choice of representatives and also a participation of the citizens in this choice. And it is very, very important, therefore, there is broader inclusivity in the processes in which representatives are chosen, and there is also remarkable transparency and accountability, as well as inclusiveness in the ways in which these representatives are chosen. Obviously, reforming elections requires improving the legal framework, but it also requires improving the capacity and competence of the election management body, not only in operating within the legal framework, but in terms of ensuring that elections are conducted efficiently and competently and effectively in terms of bringing about that integrity that is required in elective office, or people who are elected into offices. And I think we must begin with reforming the electoral legal framework. Regrettably, even though we had a major reform effort in that regard in 2010, when the Electoral Act was revised, since 2010, we have not seen serious, remarkable improvement in the electoral legal framework. And it is not only the electoral legal framework, the constitution also needs to be reviewed. If the law, the legal framework for conducting elections does not have sufficient integrity, then obviously the elections that will be conducted under that legal.
Seems we've lost Professor Jagat there. So Samson, let me just quickly use that. He was talking about legal framework. What specific legal issues should we be looking at when we are talking about electoral reform? From your monitoring of elections and your experience there, share with us, what are the specific issues?
Well, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to contribute to this discussion. At the Fixed Politics Electoral Reform Group, we've been working extensively on this and having several conversations, and there are about 5 core objectives. But before I actually go into that, Bumi, I think that the participants of this program need to know what I call what we need to know. The first is, as of today, what we know is we are 829 days to the 2023 elections. That's about 2 years and 3 months. The second point is we know that it is dangerous to retain the power to appoint commissioners into INEC with the president, because as we speak, the president has appointed one of his aides who is partisan and who was involved in his campaign in 2019 as a member of INEC. And that's an assault on the independence of the Electoral Commission. As of today, we know that the cost of elections is rising, but the quality of our elections are declining, not because INEC and other stakeholders are not putting efforts in the elections, but because the political class are so desperate that they want to seize political power. What we know today is you don't need to run campaigns. All you need to do is to, deploy thugs, undermine elections, wait until you get to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court will use results from 388 polling units to supplant, the votes of people. And so what do we need? We need 5 things. 1, an electoral amendment that strengthens and protects the institution of INEC. We say financial independence has been secured by INEC, but by the Constitution, the truth is no. If you look at the report just released by INEC, as of December 2018, the government released about 42 billion for the election that was to be conducted 60 days after. So you need reforms that secures not just the operational independence of INEC, but strengthens its financial independence. The second point is around electoral impunity, that we need an electoral offenses commission. I don't know why Justice Uwe's committee recommended it, the Inamani committee recommended it. How come the political class, the politicians in the National Assembly have refused, to provide a law that establishes an electoral offenses commission? The third point is around how do you increase citizens' participation? So electronic transmission of votes, of results, electronic voting, diaspora voting. These are innovations that we need in our electoral law to open up the space for citizens to participate. And the last point is how do you foster electoral justice? It is very, very important, and it's at the heart of reforms, that this duality that exists within jurisdiction, where you have the election tribunal and then the federal high court, issuing conflicting judgments and undermining or disrupting the electoral process, needs to be strengthened. We need a clear timeline for the dispensing of pre-election matters, as the case will be. So with respect to what should be the agenda for electoral reform, these are some of the issues that we need to articulate as the National Assembly is considering electoral reforms. But the last point is the National Assembly needs to fast track the process because we're actually at injury time with respect to electoral reforms.
Thank you very much, Samson. And I suppose one thing that citizens can do immediately is to make sure that they register. So that said, you talked about the National Assembly, and I want to link that to the constitutional reform. Ayo Shuguro, how do we go about constitutional reform? How do citizens participate in constitutional reform? How can their voices be heard? What should they be asking for? What should they seek to change in the Constitution?
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me start by noting that if we agree that democratic society is hinged on these three pillars of supply, demand, and regulator, then in terms of regulator, we have a serious deficit in Nigeria. In addition to the electoral issues that Samson and Professor Jagaf pointed out, I also subscribe to the idea that the deficit in our democracy is significantly located in our constitution. A constitution, as the name implies, is the foundational agreement for the existence of any state. And without a legitimate constitution, there can be no true social contract. So an ideal constitution should set out the historical basis for the state, the aspirational goals of the people, and map a path towards realizing those aspirations. However, what we have a situation where Nigeria is currently under a military decree. We are literally under extended military rule, or as the people on social media will say, we're in a disguise. Because why? Our constitution was enacted in 1999 without public participation in its creation or a referendum on its adoption. And in the 20 years since its enactment, the constitution has failed to heal Nigeria of the history of colonial and military trauma. It has also failed to transform Nigeria into a fully democratic nation. Instead, the 1999 Constitution entrenches military and elitist philosophy into the structure of our government. This is evident in the highly centralized allocation of government powers, the unilateral executive control of the army and the civil services, the lack of accountability structures and institutions in the country, and the limitations on judicial enforcement of human rights. In short, it's evident in the Constitution's disregard for Nigerian life. So when you combine this with a series of supply-side leadership failures over the last 20 years, we have a situation where the 1999 Constitution has actually created a crisis of democracy. So there is a fundamental need to reform Nigeria at a constitutional level. It is not enough that we have a constitution. We must also have a constitutional democracy, and there's a difference between both. So the goal we have here under the working group 3 of Fixed Politics is that we want to get all Nigerians to be concerned with designing and building the road to good governance through these constitutional, political, and electoral reforms that will get us to constitutional democracy. But we cannot arrive at a destination where the road has not been built. Our destination is good governance. The road is constitutional democracy. And so to build that road, there should be certain elements that must be present in the process of designing the constitution and in the content of the design as well. So for example, regarding process, there should be popular sovereignty. This means that the constitution should be directly approved by a significant majority of Nigerians, for example, through a referendum. There must be representation, which means that every Nigerian must have the opportunity to contribute to the reform process directly and indirectly. And representation is even more critical when we talk about marginalized groups, such as the urban and rural poor, women, children, ethnic minorities, and religious minorities. And more importantly, there must be legitimacy. That is, the process of constitutional reform must be widely accepted as a product of the society rather than an imposition by a think tank or a select group. And so what you are doing here now with Fixed Politics is to design a system that guarantees that this popular sovereignty, representation, and legitimacy is present in the constitutional reform process. Now, that doesn't mean all of this is a magic bullet, but it is a start towards the process you want to build. And for instance, we are thinking that in the short term, we will have something such as polls to reach out to people to collect their own aspirations and hopes, and then use what we call citizens' referendum to collect even wider issues on what people want a constitutional democracy in Nigeria to look like. And then we can use this as a basis for engaging with policymakers and showing them that, look, what we have in Nigeria today in our constitution is radically different from what the people really want. So let me stop here for now, and then
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It seems we still don't have Professor Jega back, but one of the things I want us to round up on are specific action points that you think citizens should do so that they can effectively engage in either constitutional reform or electoral reform. How can the mama in the Oshodi market, in Aba market, be part of that constitutional reform, the changes that we want, and how can we engage them? What are your suggestions? What has a think tank in fixed politics decided or agreed on to actually engage the grassroots all the way to the elite as well? Samson, starting with you, 1 minute, and then Ayo, and then I would round up.
Thank you very much. Given that we're in a state of national election emergency, which I call it, because we're just about 829 days, the National Assembly has indicated that it's going to amend the Electoral Act. And so citizens have a role to do one, call your elected representative and tell them these are the issues you want them to vote on in the electoral amendments. So things like, protecting the integrity and the independence of INEC, electronic transmission of results, electronic voting, diaspora voting, all those issues that we hold very dear. So ask them to do what? To vote yes for that. The National Assembly is going to conduct, a public hearing. We want citizens, to submit memorandum to the National Assembly and participate in the public hearing. The Fixed Politics Initiative is going to submit its own position paper, which will be an aggregate of what citizens, are saying on electoral reform. And the point Ayo made with respect to either through polls, gathering citizens' input, we're going to be investing in doing that. And there are existing initiatives. The whole point is the nation needs to know that we are in a national election emergency, that we are spending a lot of money for our elections. We spent 189 billion naira in the 2019 elections, and look at how the elections went. And so for 2023, we need to be active, and our elected representatives who are employees are the go-to people that we should engage in this process.
Thank you. Ayo?
As I noted earlier, a constitution is an agreement by the people. And to pick up from what Samson has just said, while it is important in the short term to look at these electoral issues, especially in light of the fact that elections will always come around whether we plan for them or not, more importantly is still that wider, larger picture of how do we get Nigerians to contribute to a more appropriate constitution for a democracy we want. And because the constitution is not just a policy document to be sent by a committee, and because it is a document, a living record actually, of the hopes and aspirations of Nigerians, it is important that Nigerians should have ownership of any constitutional reform process. And so what I am going to say now is to begin to urge as many Nigerians as are listening to this event right now to begin to think through how they imagine that their country should look like. And more importantly, to begin to demand, to agitate for a better, for a more a reformed constitution that reflects our own aspirations rather than the aspirations of some military officers. And when enough of us begin to think in this direction, we can then form a critical mass that can allow us to demand that the people who are currently in charge of policy making take steps towards realizing those aspirations. So we as individual Nigerians must begin to own this process. We must stop buying into the rhetoric that the Constitution is fine as it is, and that we just need, just to change the people in government. That is the rhetoric that politicians use to just keep recycling the same set of people in power, because, again, the destination is constitutional governance. It's a constitutional democracy, but the road has not yet been built. We are the ones who are going to build this road. And so I urge you to join initiatives like this. When you see these questions, polls, referendums asking you, how do you want Nigeria to look like? Please participate and contribute your own opinion on the kind of future that you want. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I also thank the participants for the various comments that they have put there. We won't be able to take all the questions that have been put up there, but some of them have actually asked our panelists to give input to. So, to summarize, participants need to be involved in the electoral reform. Make sure you get your voter's card. Learn more about the Electorate Act. When the Senate calls for public information, please participate. Learn about the Constitution. There are various websites that have the Constitution, including Fix Politics. Join Fix Politics. Learn about the Constitution and vote to tell us exactly what area of the Constitution that you want. Fix Politics will be rolling out initiatives in this area. Please watch out. Register on the Fix Politics website so that you can get this information. Thank you very much. I would now like to call on Dr. Abiola, who is supposed to give us an address on the constitutional reform, constitutional and electoral and political reform. Is Dr. Abiola there? Dr. Abiola? Okay, if she's not there, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, my sister Bumi Lawson. Thank you for an excellent thought-steering panel. I can see from the chat that colleagues are holding us to our word. We did say we're going to wrap up this conversation today at 4 p.m. And we do recognize that time is of the essence, but you also recognize that we had a few technical challenges here and there that kind of like added to the time budget. But we can assure you that in the next few minutes, we're going to be wrapping up. And therefore, without any further ado, let me invite someone who needs no introduction, because she wears her heart on her sleeve and she's very passionate about Nigeria and she can speak truth to power. To share with us a call to action for the next 5 minutes, please welcome my friend, my sister, my co-traveler, Aisha Yusufu.
Thank you so much, my sister, Dr. Amina Sadio. The reason why citizens will be shot at in broad daylight, citizens that came out and said that they are tired, they're tired of being killed under the cover of darkness. The reason that why they'll be shot at in broad daylight and the government will dare to deny that indeed is because we have been silent. It's because of the fact that we do not participate in politics. It's because of the fact that they know that we are not the ones who put them there, that they are the ones who put themselves there. Many of us who at every time shame people away from politics. Many of us at all the time, we look at people, those who come out, those who have competence, character, capacity, those who have empathy, those who stand for us all the time, those who speak not only when it is convenient, but when it is needed. We shame them out of politics. We make fun of them. We say to them that politics is not all about drama. We say to them that what are they doing, and yet we have a nation where the child of nobody cannot become somebody without knowing anybody. When the woman who has worked so hard all her life, cleaning houses, yet dare to send her children to school, they come out of school and they have no jobs, and we sit down and we say we do not want to participate in politics. And the reason why all of that happens is because we are afraid. We are afraid to fight our conviction. We are afraid to come out to dare to live. We are afraid to say that indeed we are citizens of this nation and we deserve to have a great life. The life that we have today is not life. Whenever they say to me, are you not afraid to die? I say to them, are you alive? We are not alive as we are right now. This country isn't working the way is. We need to fix Nigeria. And to fix Nigeria, we have to fix politics. You and I must put our money where our votes are. You and I must look at for all of those candidates who have competence, character, capacity, have empathy, are courageous, are ready to speak truth to power, and ready to face when they too are wrong. You and I must ensure that we put them there. People who are patriotic, people who are not those that will not have nothing, that will have to borrow money to get funds, and yet when they get into office, they forget that there are people who are hungry. You and I must begin to do all we can, and the time is now to fix politics. When you say you do not want to waste your vote and you vote for the major party that you believe are the ones who have structures, guess what? The biggest waste is to vote out of fear rather than out of conviction. The biggest waste is not to know that indeed that we are the structure. We the people are the structures, and we are the ones who would ensure that we have a nation that would all be proud of. Our parents failed us, we failed ourselves, we must not fail the next generation. And to the youth of Nigeria, I say to you, we are all proud of you. You have indeed shown that you are not leaders of tomorrow, you are leaders of today. We were told we are leaders of tomorrow, and we realized that tomorrow never ever came. And so you are the ones who own today. You are the ones that will come out. You are the ones with the numbers. You are the ones that will decide that indeed Nigeria has to get to where it is. And I'm calling to the youth of Nigeria. This is the time to fix politics. This is the time to participate in politics. This is the time to know that you have the intelligence, you have the technology, you have the social media, you have the creativity, you have the age on your side. And this is the time to you to get us the independence that we truly want. Once upon a time, Nigeria needed to have independence in 1960. And guess what? It was the youth of this nation that took it to get that independence. We need another independence now, and we are calling on most especially the youth. You have the largest democracy, and you need to take us out of this. I'm tired of being a slave in my own country. I'm tired of being looked down upon. I'm tired of a nation where they do not realize that no Nigeria is more Nigeria than any Nigeria. And when they see us on the street, they think we are hungry. We are not hungry. We are only angry. Thank you.
How wonderful. Thank you so much, my sister Aisha. Much love. And I can see the comments, they're powerful. They do not need repeating. They are powerful. Full stop. And next, distinguished colleagues, I would like to invite to share a word of thanks as we segue on to the next rendition of this conversation. Another friend and brother, an innovator par excellence, is always at the core of incubating ideas and young minds. Please welcome Sheung Onibide for the next steps and vote of thanks. And Sheung has 5 minutes. My brother Sheung, it's your platform.
Thank you very much. I thank so much. I don't know. I have to first apologize for this, for all the errors that we had, all the technical glitches that we had at the beginning of this session. I'm really, really sorry, and we will learn and we would take the feedback critical. Number one, I want to thank you all. I want to first start my thanks from the attendees. Let me start from there because we will not have an event without the attendees. At the time, we clocked almost 2,000 people, and it was of great joy to see that happen. I want to thank you all. I also want to thank the panelists. Thank you so much. For those who, and I will start with those who are not even members of the WSG, the Work Study Group. I want to thank you so much. I want to thank members of the Work Study Group that are here. I want to thank the media. Thanks Arise TV, AIT, Channels TV, and everyone who has been part of our program. Thank you so much. It's very important for us to understand, and I know that we had some glitches while we were having the session, and I will just give us maybe a background again. The way we are structured is that it's a triangle. We have the empowered electorate. It's on the left side, on the right side. We have the supply side, which is the value-based political class. And then at the top of that, we have the reformed constitution, political and constitutional order. And now that's at the top of everything, which means that the regulator, or those were the core institutions, are supposed to control and ensure that everything is in the proper state. What we have had is that the supply side has been domineering, has been overwhelming, and they have crippled those institutions. What we need right now is that when all of that fails, the small sector, a small segment, a small number of the empowered electorate, of the demand side has to rise. And they have to rise in unison, they have to rise with their voices loud to demand that the entire system be properly set. And that's what is bringing us to the fixed politics. That's why we have those three pillars, and we have those we call the work study group, which is collegiate of reform-minded, ethical individuals who are working towards objectives that we are fixed within the fixed policy initiatives. And one of the key objectives and where we go next is, one, we are going to be launching and we're going to be having the school for the unconventional school for politics, policy, and governance. So that school will be up, and we will be requesting that you join us. And we're looking for those who are interested in politics, those who want to run for office. And I'm talking about 2023, we're talking about 2027. We're talking about people who believe that politics should serve as a means of service. And we are going to be setting up that in the information. We have all your emails that you have joined this session. And we also, our website is there, fixedpolitics.org. We also have our social media handle. On Twitter is fixedpoliticsNIG. On Facebook is fixedpoliticsNG. You can be part of all of these platforms and give us feedback as necessary about what needs to be done. So that's going to be a core pillar for the WSG that works on the value-based political class. For WSG1, the Reform Constitution and Political Order, you have heard what the work study group says. They want to send a memorandum to the National Assembly. They want to ensure that we are also part of the current constitutional reform process. And we want to work into that. And we have people that can even thematically analyze that for us, like Mr. Ayoshogun, who has constantly made that point that the Nigerian constitutional order needs significant reform. So they will come from that angle. Then we have the empowered electorate. I've looked at the chat box. Everybody talks about grassroots. Everybody talks about getting this movement going viral, that we need a lot of more people on this track. Yes. So that is what we are going to be working with. I'm also part of that group. We'll work with data, we'll work with science, we'll work with stories, we'll work with clusters. So what we are also building, the model, as a member of the SPPG, which is on the value-based political class, you are also to set up a cluster. You're also to localize the initiative, to franchise it out, so that you begin to affect the people in your local communities around the ideals of fixed policies initiatives. So thank you so much for being part of this. We'll definitely send you follow-up emails. We'll definitely engage you. And I will make sure, I want to thank you all. And I say, God bless you. Thank you.
Bless you too, my brother. Thank you very much for the clarity of the pathway forward. Because as we advance this conversation, it's really not an end. It is the beginning of a journey that we hope to go on together. And thank you so much for your very kind words to all who have played a role today. I'm particularly proud of our participants from all over the world, amazing numbers across different platforms. And we most especially thank Her Excellency, the former President, President Joyce Banda, for those kind words. And His Excellency Felipe Calderon of Mexico. Mucho gracias, mucho gracias. We thank you so very much, Your Excellency, for staying up at that hour when everyone in Mexico should be in bed. It shows that we have got friends and there's solidarity. As it is, you know, in Hausa, it said, we need all hands together. In Yoruba. And there's something that I've always loved. It's an expression in Igbo, and it's the word Nneka. Nneka means mother is supreme. Nigeria is our motherland. It's the only one place that we have got, and we need as much as possible to love it and to reimagine it. To reimagine it by moving away from hierarchies of power, but to rethink the hierarchies of imagination that allows everybody, like Aisha said, to matter. Thank you so very much. We salute you with a halo. Thank you so much for joining us today on this journey. This is just the first chapter. Thank you so very much. And good day to you from your part of the neck of the woods. Thank you so much. Over to you, Florence.
All right. Thank you so much. I think we will just have a sign out song, and we will be in touch definitely with everybody who's here, and we'll end with a song of T.Y. Bello, The Future. Thank you so much. We're really glad. We're really glad that you are here and you are part of this with this session. Thanks so much. Yeah. Or maybe we take Timi Dakolo. Yeah.
We stand as a people with one song, with one voice. We're a nation undivided and voice. We will take us down and build our land in place to defend what is ours. Here we are as a people with one heart for one cause. We're determined to rebuild and restore. Where freedom rise and truth prevails. Our land where there's hope for us all. Our land where there's hope for us all. We'll defend our land. We'll believe in this nation, and we know we'll get there. We're all we have. We'll defend our land. We believe in Nigeria and the promise she holds. And one day we'll shine like the sun. We're a great nation. So we are many people, different tribes, different tongues. We're united in our strength and resolve to uphold the honor of our land and for generations to come. And for generations to come. We are
ended. Talk ended.
We are the future. So get out of the way of the land of my dreams. I am the nation, I am part of this. Whoa. Carry the song, carry the sound. The future is so wild.
Yay.
Nigeria hasn't always justified the faith of its people, but there comes a time when you're pushed to the wall and there's nowhere to go but up. If we just decide in our hearts that we want to believe in Nigeria and we want to take steps every day to make this country a better place. Yes, Nigeria is not good. We so much sick and desire. The destiny of Nigeria is in our hands. We are the country.
We are the dream. We are the nation. We are part of this. Yes, we are so amazing. That's the least we shall be. At the heart of the nation, changing history. How can they say that we are finished? We have just begun. We have nowhere else to run. We have nowhere else to go. So get out of the way of the land of our dreams. We are the nation, we are part of this. We are the nation, we are part of this. Carry the song, carry the sound. The future is here. The future is here. Just by yesterday, tomorrow is now for the taking. The future is here. The future is here. I am the future. I am the future. I am the dream. I am the nation. I am part of this. I am so amazing. That's the things that shall be. As a part of the nation, changing history. How can they say that we are winning? We have just begun. When we have nowhere else to run, we
The future is not a time zone that is yet to come. The future is everything that we can do with our project. The future is everything that we can do. So go ahead.
Okay. Need to get out. People are still sending messages. I need to. Should I end this one?
Call ended.
You there?